Will Tata Motors get a quick return? If there is one thing about Tata Motors which is the most important or what defines this 77-year-old company today is the perception. The way this company has changed the perception about itself in the last few years is an example rarely seen. The increasing number of Tata vehicles on the road only testifies to the change in perception. The new generation driving the shining cars of Tata also speaks of this. This change is visible in the investor sentiments as well.
So, how did the turnaround of Tata Motors happen? What has changed the perception regarding Tata Motors? What does this turnaround mean for investors? And the biggest concern is whether investors will earn further in Tata Motors. These are some of the questions that come to the mind of every person who is thinking of betting on Tata Motors. Now, if you want to find the answers to the above questions, then you must understand the whole story of Tata Motors. So, let's start with the history. Tata Motors is a 77-year-old company. Then, its name was Telco. You might not know that in the initial days, the company used to make rail engines. The company started using the Tata brand in 1969. Later, in 1983, the company started making heavy commercial vehicles. In 1991, the company started manufacturing passenger vehicles. An important milestone in the journey of Tata Motors came in 1998 when the company launched the country's first SUV Safari. The price of this car was 8.5 lakh rupees back then. Tata Indica, which was the identity of the company in the passenger vehicle, was launched in 1998. This was the first small car with a diesel engine, then came the Indigo. Meanwhile, Tata took a big decision. Ratan Tata always had focus on Tata Motors. To make his mark in the auto sector, he bought Jaguar Land Rover. This purchase, which took place in 2008, was done for $2.3 billion. This deal was very controversial and many people criticized this expensive deal. Then, Ratan Tata showed people the dream of rupees 1 lakh car. Overall, the period from 2006 to 2016 was quite challenging for Tata Motors. However, today Tata Motors is the second largest auto company in the country. So how did this turnaround happen?
It started with the appointment of the business head of the new passenger vehicles. In October 2014, Maruti COO Mayank Parikh was selected by Tata for the company's turnaround. It was Parikh who started the exercise to change the perception about Tata Motors. People used to see Tata vehicles like taxis, be it Indica or Indigo. Parikh wanted people to see Tata cars for personal use and not as taxis. This is where the era of this perception change started. In 2016, a new CEO and MD, Guenter Buschek, joined the company and the company gained momentum. Then, new models, new design concepts, use of features of JLR, safety, features and the focus on technology kept increasing. The effect was that the company, which used to sell vehicles by giving huge discounts earlier, waiting period goes on the same vehicles today.
In the recent past, Tata Motors has worked rapidly in electric vehicles EV. The company's Nexon and Tigor EVs are in the market. In case of EV, Tata Motors is far ahead of other companies. The company plans to invest more than $2 billion in the EV business in the next 5 years. Also, in association with Tata Power, the company wants to create a charging infrastructure. Now let's understand the story of Tata's turnaround from the point of view of investors. The first and foremost thing is that 80% of Tata Motors' earnings comes from JLR itself. During FY09 to FY15, Tata's turnaround grew by 257% and this was due to JLR. Peak consolidated profit of 13,986 crore rupees in FY15 against a loss of 2,505 crore rupees was recorded in FY09. And in 2016, the global sales of JLR crossed 5 lakh units. Financial position of the company. The company had a debt of about 35,000 crore rupees in 2008-2009. This debt has increased to 1.14 lakh crore rupees in 2020-21. Similarly, in 2008-9, the company had a loss of 2,505 crore rupees. In 2020-21, this loss has increased to 13,451 crore rupees. If you look at the debt to equity ratio, then it is also increasing. The company's D is to E ratio stood at 0.2 times in 2015-16. In 2020-21, it has reached 1.4 times, which is the highest of the decade. Notably, long-term investors are still losing money in Tata Motors. Yes, investors have rubbed a lot in Tata Motors in recent times. The share of Tata Motors has increased by 40% in 1 year and has almost 4 times in 2 years. But those who had invested money in it 5 years ago are still waiting for the return. The biggest problem of the investors of Tata Motors is not paying the company's dividend. The company has not paid any dividend since 2016. The reason for this, however, is the loss and the increasing debt. Investors are eagerly waiting for the company to turn profitable and start paying dividend again. Money9 suggests, now there is only one question in the minds of investors: whether Tata Motors can be a winning bet in the coming times. Brokerage firms and analysts appear bullish on Tata Motors. High target prices have also been given for its shares. But Money9's suggestion is that investors who have invested for a long period in the expectation of dividend should wait for the company to turn profitable. Because the company has not given any dividend for 5 years due to high debt and losses. To understand what is the cash ratio for a company, watch Formula Guru.